What's up, my fellow ENTPs? Before taking the Myers Briggs personality test, I knew I had some issues, but learning that they were consistent with a known psychological profile was good news to me. The fact that our personalities have been typed and our strengths and weaknesses well defined means that we can creatively solve them to perform optimally. In today's video, I'm covering the top 3 flaws of the ENTP personality type and how I manage those flaws to avoid getting stuck in messy cerebral circles where I can't stop offending people or changing direction every 3 months. I happen to be in one of these cycles now, so this video is also a reminder to myself that I need to refocus and get on top of my strengths. On this channel, I wanted to give the public a direct example of how an ENTP's mind works by living my life out loud and on display. On this channel, we mostly cover real estate, investing, business development, and then I take a few detours covering my personal interest. As an ENTP, that could be anything from aviation to farming animal proteins. If this is the sort of thing that you find interesting, make sure that you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing. Liking and subscribing is the best way to give back to the channel, so stop being a freeloader and tickle those buttons. My name is Carl Pierre, and this is ENTP Life. In my opinion, the top 3 things that ENTP struggle with are 1, a lack of focus, number 2, being brutally honest, having high expectations, and being critical of other people, and the third thing on my list is being rebellious and resistant to conventional thinking. If you're an ENTP yourself, or you know us very well, you could agree that these are probably the top 3 problems that we have. That lack of focus is really due to our ability to think abstractly and connect all the dots. So we walk around and navigate the world being able to see the possibilities in everything, and that naturally grabs our attention. It's like kind of being a child again. I could say that that's what an ENTP is really like. Being a kid who's like in a toy store and just moves from one toy to the next because they find the next toy that much cooler. It's the same sort of thing. Another thing about ENTPs is that we don't really have a good filter for when we're interacting with other people. We like to receive information direct, especially criticism, because it's through being criticized that we actually improve. So once someone says there's something wrong with what we're doing or how we're doing it, after maybe cursing them out, we're gonna go home and think about it and say, okay, was this person right? And can I actually do this better? And can I prove this person wrong by doing it better? The common character kind of flaw of an ENTP is that because of that, that's how they want to receive information and that's how they want to be treated. When they see a flaw in somebody else, they think pointing it out, being direct about it, criticizing or insulting is really the best way to motivate or actually point out that they're doing something wrong. And we have like this knack for seeing what is being done wrong. And we want other people to do the same thing to us. And it's kind of our way of transposing our way of thinking and being on other people, but not everybody is prepared for that. And as far as being rebellious and not really sticking to a tradition, it's something that we can't really change about ourselves. It's really innate, at least for me. I can't look at the status quo and say, yeah, that's okay. I'm always gonna be looking for the flaw in the traditional thinking, because if something is traditional, it doesn't necessarily make it correct or the most efficient way of doing things. And we have this need to be significantly efficient or to test and kind of destroy known concepts. If you look at maybe some famous inventors like Benjamin Franklin, for instance, known ENTP, he would consistently challenge tradition and convention because that was his method to solving for what is to come next. And you need to have that sort of defiance to convention to be able to innovate. If not, you're gonna just be comfortable with the way things are, and that's just not an ENTP's way. We're not rebellious just because we want to resist the law or resist tradition because it's fun. Well, sometimes it is a little fun, but oftentimes it's because we're trying to stretch the fabric of reality and see how far we could push things and if we can make it better. If we fail, we can accept that and say, well, this is truly the limit and this is the reason why, and then we conform. But just to accept it without the testing, without the experimentation, without the debate is absolutely not gonna happen with us. So you have to understand that, again, it's not because we're trying to be difficult. It is mainly because our mode of thinking and learning is to test, deconstruct, reconstruct, alternate, and that's how we advance ourselves. Now let's talk about how to deal with each of these character flaws. To manage your lack of focus, involve yourself in work that you won't get bored of or will achieve cash flow positive quickly so that you can delegate the boring stuff to others as your focus drifts. As ENTPs, we create awesome projects and businesses that require maintenance. However, maintenance just isn't our thing. So you need a way of passing that responsibility onto somebody else so the business can be maintained by people who are better at that. People will either commit to the maintenance due to their own passion or due to the paycheck. Find the right people and delegate before your interest fades. As an ENTP, my biggest pain point in myself is my lack of focus. And what happens is my attention gets drawn to a bunch of different things and I do everything at the same time. There's only 24 hours in the day and I honestly can't get everything done. And what I realized is that my attention span is roughly 6 months on any particular project that I'm doing. And it's better for me to do project-based work. That's why flipping houses is excellent for me. I get into a new neighborhood, a new style of home, and I'm able to take on that project, modify it, improve it, and be done with it, usually within 3 to 6 months, sometimes longer depending on the scope of the project. But seeing that consistent change and the evolution of that particular thing is satisfying to me. However, when it comes to managing tenants, I'm absolutely horrible because maintenance work just doesn't fit into my personality. I don't care if somebody's behind on rent. Like I care that they're behind on rent because I want my rent. But if I have to go through the process of picking up the phone, calling them, contacting the attorney, and this is just kind of a routine thing, I'd rather just not do it because my mind is on the next project and the next shiny thing that's interesting to me. So when I set out to start a new business or take on something, I always look at whether or not I'm going to achieve cash flow positive in that particular thing in my interest range. Because if it's something that doesn't have a clear end, like a property is sold and you move on, if it's something that's gonna convert to like a rental property, I need to know that that rental property is gonna produce enough money that I could pay a property manager to deal with all the day-to-day stuff because it's not gonna work for me. Or if I'm starting a new business that's like service-oriented, I need to know that I could get my clientele up to a certain mark so that I could hire assistants or I could hire like an operations person that's gonna see things through. Because following up on emails, even paying bills, man, you gotta see how many times my credit has taken a hit because I have something on auto pay and I changed my bank account and didn't go back and update all the auto pay requirements. Or I lost my credit card or debit card or something like that and I didn't update something. So having enough cash coming from the activities that you're interested in is crucial because that cash is going to fund the responsible people who are gonna do the tedious work that we just don't have the attention span for or even the desire to do. Now, for the second issue, my solution for the abrasiveness is to be mindful and compassionate. Once you realize that not everyone thinks like you or should think like you, you could adjust to be less offensive. Understanding the different personalities helped me with this. However, I still struggle because I can't resist telling someone the truth about themselves. Because if an ENTP doesn't, who will? If ever you were in a tense meeting or an environment that seemed to be kind of leadership and followers, and there was somebody in the crowd who kind of stood up and went against what was being said by leadership, it most likely was an ENTP. We tend to debate everybody, even if we are in agreement with the person that we're debating, just for the fun of the exchange of ideas to really see how deep is that person's knowledge in the subject that they're claiming to kind of be a know-it-all in. We tend to have a pretty wide range of information floating around our head. So when somebody brings something up that is within our knowledge set, we're gonna really poke and prod to see if they really know what they're talking about and if there's something to be learned from that person. And it may come off as a challenge or being abrasive or not willing to conform, and all those things are true, but it's really, again, for the hope of finding integrity in that person who's claiming to be proficient in a topic, or a learning opportunity. Now, we also apply the same to people directly in our personal lives. This is our friends, our family. We're quick to call BS on someone if we see that their actions and their words aren't lining up. It's just something that we can't resist, and it's because that's how we want to be treated. Now, I didn't realize this about people for maybe 35 years of my life before I started learning a little bit about the personality types. I thought everybody was more or less the same, and their minds just either were resistant to change, or they just weren't hearing the information from somebody in the right way. So I thought I was the person that had to give it to them straight. And I still think that. I will give it to people pretty raw and direct without really sugarcoating anything. But in learning a little bit more about the personality types and how different people respond to criticism and the different types of criticism and how to bring somebody into a safe conversation prior to laying, some negatives down in front of them is important. And if you start to read up on the personality types and even kind of conflict management, you will see that there are people who are really different than you are. And when somebody comes to you, you may want them to give you, the criticism without sugarcoating it. Just, you need it raw and direct. You need it to be efficient. You don't need it to be wordy and softened up. That's you. That's not everybody else. The majority of people kind of need to be walked down like a gentle path of criticism, where maybe you might start with kind of complimenting them on what's good about what they're doing and what's good about them as a person, before kind of slipping in what they can improve on and what they're not doing so well. And you have to be really selective about your choice of words. This is an exercise for me because I can't stand it. So before I go to talk to an employee about something that I don't like about their work, unless they're like me, where I could give it, where I've already established that they're a straight shooter. But if there's someone that is not an ENTP, and pretty much just about every other personality type, ENTJs are pretty good with this too. They like it kind of straight and direct, INTJs as well. When I'm talking to them, I have to kind of prep myself before going into the conversation to make sure that I come off friendly and I'm not really just pessimistic in the conversation, and kind of pep them up before I bring up the thing that I really want to address, which to an ENTP is annoying because it's a total waste of time. But I understand that if I'm going to get people to continue to work with me and have satisfaction in their job, I need to kind of normalize myself and be like the masses. And it's just a tool that I needed to develop, because the feedback that I got from my staff, we did like a reverse 360 where they evaluated me. Overwhelmingly, my staff had said that I only talk to them about the problems. ENTP, that's just what we do. We're gonna walk into a room and we're gonna see everything that's wrong with that room, whether it's a crooked picture frame or the hole in the wall or the imperfection in the construction. That's just what we look for constantly. And it's not because we're just pessimistic people, it's that we don't believe in wasting our time on anything that is good. If it's good, leave it alone. If it needs fixing, that's what gets our attention. So we always are looking at even a great employee that you would kind of give an outstanding evaluation to. You feel the need to address their negativities or their downsides. So you're like, oh man, if this person will be the perfect employee if they only adjusted this attribute of their work. So you focus on that one negative, and every time that they're hearing from you, it's about the negative thing, and you're not giving enough praise where praise is due, and you just need to be mindful of that. And that's my advice for that piece. For the third issue, I recommend you surround yourself with people you respect and trust, yet support convention and order, particularly the NJs of the world. I did another video where I kind of explained what sort of personality types work with me pretty well. And it's not just from a overall standpoint, it's more from like a work environment standpoint. I really like interacting and working with the NJs of the world. And they work well with me mainly because they are intuitive in that they don't need much information to get the point. And since we kind of talk in bullet points at times, where we're just kind of given instruction in bullet points without much of a presentation, it's kind of just coming out, they are able to sit back and digest that, fill in the gaps, and understand. While some of the other personality types need that direct verbatim instruction. They can't do the bullet points, and they tend to annoy us. But the intuitive types, they don't need much information. They could kind of connect the dots based on what you're saying, and they get you. Now, the judgers versus the perceivers, those are those that have like the J's at the end of the little acronym. They prefer order. They're like the timely people. They're trustworthy. They really don't like to deviate from the rules. They're really concerned about breaking rules. They like structure. They like things to kind of fit. And the perceivers, the P's, they could care less about order and rules. They tend to be messy. Timeliness doesn't quite matter. They are spontaneous, go with the flow, would rather not have structure in their life. Those people are cool for ENTPs to hang out with, get to know, joke around with. But for work, they aren't the best because we may get carried away in sloppiness when there's things that require order. And since we are innately pretty disorganized, we need those people who are gonna follow the rules and keep the order. And I like to have those NJs in like my upper management areas because again, the ENTP is gonna be great at coming to the table with new ideas, new concepts, not so good with execution, but the NJs are really great with understanding those loose ideas and also executing because they tend to be pretty structured in how they approach their life and work. So having some NJs around you will help keep you morally kind of in line because we could kind of bend the laws a little bit. That's why a lot of attorneys are ENTPs. We like to find the loopholes in things and exploit them. So when it comes to kind of keeping consistent with the laws, you want some NJs around you to help you with that. And you also want them to kind of keep you on track and keep you on schedule. You can kind of work without the intuitive types, especially when it's more routine work, like clerical work. Maybe the SJs are really good at in clerical roles. But when it comes to direct from your mind to people who can actually do and understand and keep you safe, I think the NJs are best for us. One more thing I want to touch on about ENTPs is our love life. Loving an ENTP can be challenging, but here's what you can do about it. Dating us is difficult, mainly because we always want change. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we always want a new partner. Sometimes it's nice, but we typically want new ideas. So we need to have partners that are either going to be willing to test the boundaries of life a bit, kind of go out in new directions often, or they're that way themselves where they're coming to the table with new ideas because they're continuously inspired by difference and change. So ENTPs, we kind of know that we're lacking in the organization, and we sometimes, and this is something that I've done, dated the wrong type of people to supplement who we are as a person. And like, oh, this person is organized and nice and polite and, all the things that we're not. And we think that by pairing up with them, we kind of become a more whole person. But at the core, we're very different. And ENTP being messy and ESFJ being organized and orderly could create a very challenging household where you're constantly fighting about why didn't you close the cabinet or why didn't you put the remote on the left side of the coffee table or something silly like that, where it's just like, what? I'm even happy to know that the remote's somewhere that I could find it. So we need to be careful with not trying to hack ourselves by selecting a partner that is going to be kind of like an improvement for us in a way, but really selecting people who kind of align with who we are at our core, which is a person who is consistently thirsty for new information, consistently thirsty for change. If you really want to keep your ENTP engaged, you have to be an aggregator of information and willing to take on random activities, or be highly specialized in something that they're interested in. Because as you learn more about that particular topic, well, let's just say it's art history, as you get deeper and deeper into art history and can bring new information to this ENTP, oh man, this guy or girl is gonna be absolutely in love with you, because the thing that we love more than anything else is new information that allows us to be a little bit more whole as a person. I hope my fellow ENTPs and those who love us and or are trying to fix us learned something today. Thanks again for joining me here on ENTP Life. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out and use the comment section below. I answer every single comment. Actually, this week's live will be an open Q&A session. No topic is off the table, so let's talk about life hacks and maybe some other things that most people might find uncomfortable talking about. I'll see you this Wednesday. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.